Pokemon Red and Blue were the very first games of the Pokemon franchise, so it's expected that there would be some mistakes, especially since Game Freak was a pretty small company at the time of Pokemon Red and Blue's development. Now, if Red and Blue only had a few mistakes, I would understand, but the amount of mistakes in this game makes me wonder how they even got this game into production. I'm not even talking about glitches like the Missing No glitch or the Glitch City glitches, since those require a convoluted method to pull off, and I can see how they wouldn't catch glitches like that while testing the game, but there's so many other mistakes in Pokemon Red and Blue that make it seem like they didn't even bother testing the game at all, as a lot of the mistakes are easily noticeable when playing through the game normally. I understand that everybody makes mistakes, and that I even make mistakes from time to time in my videos, for example, but the amount of mistakes in Red and Blue that seem like they'd be easy to catch is pretty staggering. Before we get too far into this video, I just want to mention that the majority of people who watch my videos aren't even subscribed, so please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and also consider leaving a like as it helps the channel a ton and gets my videos pushed through the magical YouTube algorithm, which is great. So for our first mistake, this one's actually pretty well known. If a dual type Pokemon is hit by a move that is super effective to one type but resisted to the other type, the game will either say it is super effective or not very effective, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a neutral hit. For example, if Bulbasaur, a grass and poison type Pokemon, gets hit by a poison type move, it'll say it is super effective when in reality it should be neutral, as grass is weak to poison, but poison is resistant to poison, which should display as neutral, but of course Red and Blue had to mess that up as well. This is because the game checks if the move is super effective against one of the two types, and the super effective message overrides anything else. The move Focus Energy just doesn't work properly. The same can be said about the item Dire Hit, which has a similar application, both of which are supposed to increase the user's critical hit chance by 4 times. Instead, they lower your critical hit chance by 4 times due to a mistake in the calculation for how they calculate critical hits. This seems like it would be pretty easy to catch, since when testing the formula for calculating a Focus Energy critical hit, you would see that it's actually lowered, and all you have to do was change the numbers around a little bit. The vending machines on top of the Celadon City department store allow you to buy the more expensive drinks from them even if you don't have enough money for them. All you need is at least 200 Pokédollars, and the game will let you buy a soda pop or lemonade which costs more than 200 Pokédollars, but your money will still fall to 0, but at least you get a discount on the drinks. Lance's Dragonite knows the move Barrier. Dragonite cannot learn Barrier in Generation 1. When battling an NPC, the game always tries to pick the super effective move, which does make sense. So, for example, let's say I'm using a Hitmonchan and I'm battling Lance's Dragonite. Dragonite will always go for a Psychic type move since it would be super effective, however Dragonite's only Psychic move is Agility, which does no damage, instead it just increases its speed. This means Dragonite will always go for Agility because the game thinks it's the strongest move because Psychic is super effective against fighting types, but in reality it does nothing since it's not a damaging move. Coughing Sprite has the skull and crossbones above its eyes when it's supposed to be under its mouth. Some people argue that this is a mistake and that the anime had it wrong and they just went with it in future games, but it is something that's easily noticeable if you've seen an actual picture of Coughing and then played the games. There's an item called the Pokédoll in Red and Blue which lets you flee from wild battle. This isn't all that useful in Generation 1, but due to an oversight, you can use the Pokédoll against the ghost in the Pokemon Tower to make it go away without ever getting the Silph Scope like you're supposed to. In the Pokédex, Mewtwo is listed as Pokemon 150, while Mew is 151. If Mewtwo was made from Mew and is literally called Mewtwo, then why does it appear in the Pokédex before Mew? In order for Mewtwo to even exist, the existence of Mew had to be known already, meaning it should have been cataloged before Mewtwo. In the lab on Cinnabar Island, there's an NPC who wants you to trade him a Raichu. If you do, he will say the Raichu evolved, but Raichu doesn't evolve. While some people think this is a hint to the rumored Gorochu Pokemon which was supposed to evolve from Raichu, it's actually just a translation error from the Japanese game, since in the Japanese version you were supposed to trade him a Kadabra instead of a Raichu, and Kadabra is supposed to evolve via trading. On Route 8, there's a trainer who says, "You look good at Pokemon, but how's your Chem?" It's supposed to continue on and say Chemistry grade and not just Chem. In the Spanish versions of Pokemon Red and Blue, when you hook a Pokemon while fishing, it says El Malvado Pokemon Ataco, which literally translates to the evil Pokemon attacked. It should say the hooked Pokemon attacked, but in Spanish instead. Normally when you go for the move Hyper Beam in Red and Blue, you would have to wait a turn to recharge since it's a powerful move and that's one of the drawbacks. This is why you don't see Hyper Beam used much anymore, but in Generation 1 it was one of the strongest attacks since you could bypass the recharging turn. If the Hyper Beam knocked out a Pokemon, the recharge turn would just be skipped. When loading up a brand new save file in Pokemon Red and Blue and talking to Professor Oak in the intro sequence, he will show you a Nidorino. A cry will play, but it's actually Nidorino's cry and not Nidorino's. If you go to the bike shop in Cerulean City without the bike voucher and talk to the owner, then cancel out the menu, the game will show all lines of text instantly when talking to somebody instead of having it slowly appear across the screen. This is a tactic that some speedrunners use, and it happens because the game never resets the text flags properly after talking to the guy in the bike shop. If you go back to the bike shop later in the game though and get the bike, then the text will all return back to normal. Although it doesn't display in-game, each move in Generation 1 has a certain base power and accuracy, much like modern Pokemon games do. Even if a move is supposed to be 100% accurate though, it still has a small chance of missing, in fact a 1 in 256 chance of missing. While this is a very low chance, it still does happen and can be very frustrating, especially for speedrunners. The reason for this unintended chance of missing a hit, even though some moves aren't supposed to miss, is because the game checks for a random number between 0 and 255 when calculating a move's accuracy, when it should be 0 and 254. If the random number generator picks 255, which is a number too high, that always makes a move miss. Now let's say you're playing through Pokemon Red and Blue and you pick Hitmonlee over Hitmonchan like a madman. Hitmonlee is known to have the move High Jump Kick, and if it misses, you will crash and take some recoil damage. In Generation 1 though, the damage calculation is messed up, so you always take 1 point of damage if you miss High Jump Kick, when in reality it should be more. In the Japanese versions, the bike shop in Cerulean City has the name Miracle Cycle with a sign outside of it, but in the English versions it's never referred to by a name and it's just called the bike shop with no sign. Typically, Pokédex entries have a period at the end of the sentence, which is just proper grammar, but for whatever reason, in the Spanish versions of Pokemon Red and Blue, Squirtle's Pokédex entry just doesn't have a period at the end, and this mistake was even carried over into Yellow version as well. Now, similar to the Raichu trade we talked about before, where the NPC claims the Raichu evolved after you traded it to them, despite Raichu not evolving at all, there's another NPC in Cerulean City who will trade you a Jinx for a Poliwhirl. However, when you do so, he will say that the Poliwhirl evolved despite Poliwhirl not actually evolving. Originally, you're supposed to trade them a Haunter for a Machoke, both of which do evolve via trading, which was probably a way to show players that these Pokemon evolve via trading. However, for whatever reason, they changed these trade evolutions for the international releases, making them a little bit harder to obtain. And those are just some of the mistakes that exist in Pokemon Red and Blue. I didn't even get into glitches in this video, and there are still tons of mistakes I didn't mention in this video, so be sure to leave a comment down below letting me know what your favorite mistake in Pokemon Red and Blue is, as there's quite a lot of them. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, as one like does go a long way, and also consider subscribing so you can see more Pokemon videos like this one. And with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I will see you all next time, and bye bye.